What's going on, guys? In today's video, we're going to be checking out the Mezco Toys One 12 Collective Suicide Squad Harley Quinn. Before we have a look at Harley and her accessories, let's figure out how tall the figure stands. And she is roughly about 6¼ inches to be exact. Should displaying the figure be a little on the tricky side, as maybe she may topple over, the folks over at Mezco include a rather large Suicide Squad back display base, or black display base rather. It's rather shiny, with featuring the Suicide Squad on the top area here and one singular peg, which will attach to the two peg options, the two peg hold options on the undersides of her feet. Granted, the figure, I find, stands with no problem whatsoever. Even though she's got a very small footprint, even though she's got high heels, I find myself being very easy, very capable to get her to stand no problem whatsoever. This stand also, though, however, does come handy if you want to display her in a little bit more of a dynamic pose. What I would rather probably do, as opposed to just standing her very museum-like, very standing straight up, is probably have her in a slight walking position, perhaps with baseball bat in hand. So that does allow you to do that. You can technically also, as the accessory is included, we'll get her stand again, she does also come with the adjustable neck. We've seen this with a couple of the other 112 collective figures. It is adjustable neck that adjusts in 3 different knuckle areas. One here, one in the middle, one on the end. This also rotates, and you've got yourself the waist clip. I don't personally feel the need to display her with it, because in all honesty, she's not going to necessarily be flying. But I suppose at the very least, if you want to have her jumping in the air, perhaps swinging down her baseball bat, or firing off a few rounds from her gun, I guess this could be an option you would want to go with. Taking the stand, there is only one peg. It's going to be shared between the two. So to get this out, you're going to flip the stand over, take the peg, and basically just pop through the peg until you can pull it out on the other end, and then just pop this in place. I'm perfectly fine, again, just displaying it with the stand and the peg, but the options are definitely there should you wish. She comes with a rather large list of different accessories, and also a 112 collective bag in which you can put all the accessories into when you're not using them. I always really like these. It's granted just a Ziploc bag, folks, but it's got the print, the label on the front area here, which has actually been printed on rather than a labeled sticker over top. But at the very least, it's something that a company could include for you to display, or rather not display your accessories in, and rather put them in instead. One of the other accessories, well, of the accessories, one of which I've already gone ahead and put on her, is the holster that's going to hold her gun. It was simply just a case of bringing her arms back and then sliding each of the looplets of the belt on either side until eventually I got it onto her torso. The only problem doing this is I find that the bracelets do pop off frequently because there's really nothing attaching them. They're just clamped onto her forearm, and as a result, anytime you move her arms, I find, especially this one here, it falls off frequently. So just be mindful of that. I do think that the holster is a little on the large side, granted. To be fair, it more than sufficiently fits the gun by putting in place. I guess it goes like that, and I may actually have it going the opposite way, but nonetheless, the holster is a little on the big side by comparison to the rest of the figure here. I do feel it's a little on the big side. And yes, it probably would be the case where I would just have to flip the belt around so it's facing the opposite way. But yeah, it's just a little on the big side. The actual replacement cartridges for the gun cannot come out. They're just sculpted in the belt itself. Except for the fact of switching around the belt has very minimal amounts of detail to it, but it does kind of simulate that of like a faux leather material. We'll put the gun to the side first, and we'll go back to all of that. Let's have a look at the defaulted head sculpt. for Harley Quinn, and then we'll kind of cycle through all the other head sculpts that she comes included with. I find like the t-shirt doesn't sit the greatest. It does seem to want to ride up from time to time. So as for the figure itself, defaulted, she comes with her Daddy's Little Monster shirt. But at any given point, you can also swap it out to the jacket. We'll put that on as second as well. The t-shirt is good. T-shirt is nice. It's slightly on a more thinner material, and she also has her bra underneath that. She's also got all of her tattoos present, like Lucky You. She's got the eyeballs featured at the back of her torso. It's not quite, yeah, there's the eyeballs right there. And I'm watching. And she's also got the tattoos on her arms. Tattoos all over her legs. As for her face, it's not a bad looking face sculpt. It misses slight marks to make me think that it looks enough like her. I get the vibe that it has all the Harley Quinn-esque things to it. The colored hair, the colored pigtails I should say, the paler skin tone. But there's something seems slightly off on the face. I think it looks a little bit more like her, slightly more on the angle than it does on the front. But something definitely seems off. To be fair though, a figure of this size, you don't tend to get the most accurate of head sculpts. But I think it's not bad. It's almost there by that much. But it's not, like I said, it's not terrible. The costume, like I said, is real material. Again, a little thinner material here. She does also have her fishnet stockings. One of the big problems I have with the fishnet stockings is not really so much the front of the figure, but until you spin it around to the back. Because everything is scaled down. I keep clipping the paper on my backdrop. Because everything is kind of scaled down. Ultimately, you've got these very broad lines of where the material for the fishnet stocking all comes together. There's nothing really you can do about it. It doesn't look like you can actually separate and spread this out. So it's ultimately something you're just going to have to deal with. It's not that you're going to be seeing the figure from that side anyways. You're likely going to be looking at it from the front. And while I do appreciate the fishnet stockings, it's a shame that they couldn't have found some other way around it so you didn't have these big bold lines running down the back area here. The separated on this particular figure, but the Converse style basketball high heel shoes that she has in the movie. Colored very nicely both in the white, the black, and little slight traces of red. I say separate because these are two separate pieces. The top are separate from the bottom. They are not attached, which also benefits the figure because then you can move the feet and it's not attached to the top portion, the top part of the boot area here. The belt is also a separate piece, which ultimately then means that the belt kind of just sits loosey-goosey. It just kind of flops around a little bit on the figure. Otherwise, not too terribly bad. Costume comes together nicely, just shy of the fact that you've got the big bold line running on the back. And the head sculpt, like I said, is passable. It's better than some of the other Harley Quinns that we've gotten. I don't think it's as good as, say, the Hot Toys Harley Quinn. But to be fair, that's a more expensive figure, and it's also a lot taller and a lot larger. It's very easy to get details right when you have a larger scale figure to work with versus something a little bit smaller. So she does have a couple of variations of head sculpts. Speaking of the Hot Toys version of Harley Quinn, here's a little bit more of a Hot Toys Harley Quinn sort of face expression where she's got her mouth open. Don't really feel 100% that it looks like her, but I guess it's passable enough for the scale of the figure. The other head sculpt I really do quite like is this one right here. She has a permanent bubble-blowing, gum-blowing bubble coming out of her mouth. It's slightly on the more translucent plastic, so you can see a little bit behind it. I really like this one. And to the testament of Mezco, at the very least, they took chances when it came to alternate head sculpts. I mean, Harley Quinn from the Hot Toys standpoint, I really don't want to do comparisons of a smaller figure like this versus the larger Hot Toys. But at the very least, I would have loved like a neutral face sculpt or this awesome bubble gum blowing bubble head sculpt maybe as an included option, or at the very least, something that could have been attached to the mouth area of Harley Quinn. To be fair though, Hot Toys, it would have been a little bit trickier to get a bubble blowing out of that. To change out any number of the head sculpts, simply just grab the torso area, get a good grip of the torso, and pop the head off. You have to be a little careful of the little strands of hair. Even though they feel slightly on a softer plastic, you still want to be careful that you don't accidentally break those. Popping the head back into place. It's like there. It's almost, but it's not quite. And there's that head sculpt. And like I said, we'll go ahead and pop the other head sculpt and put the... Again, I really like this one. I love the bubblegum blowing, which for displaying options, I'll likely display it with the bubblegum blowing bubble. Okay, so we'll put the figure right there. We'll have a look at her jacket. Open up the Ziploc bag. It's not even so much a Ziploc bag, it's a bag with an adhesive strip on the end there. Take her jacket off. The cardboard. Ultimately, it's ripped the cardboard a little bit, and that's okay. We'll bend the arms up, bend the arms back, and let's bring the sleeves in. I'm wondering, I've done this a couple of times, and every single time that I do it, I always think the same thing. I'm going to take the bracelets off. Take the bracelets off, and at least they're not going to get snagged onto the material. The last thing you would definitely want for those little tiny spikes is to get them broken. So we'll just kind of slide the jacket up. It's like dressing a very small child. And just bring up the jacket like so. Some fiddling and adjusting will be required, I'll tell you this right now. Ultimately, too, what may benefit you also as well, yeah, we should have done that right from the beginning, take the hands out. Talking so much about the bracelets, let's take the hands out, then you would not have had the issue. So we'll go ahead and pop the hands out, like that. Revisit where we were going. We were almost at our destination, and then Butterfingers here realized he didn't take the hands out. Shame, shame, shame. Also, the more visible pegs from the hands also help to peek through. Hello, you're there. Hello. There you are. There you are. Come on out. There. Perfect. So, like I said, you have to do a little bit of adjusting. You have to peek those little hands through. Get the little nubs, the little stump areas here popped through, and then we can go ahead and put the hands in place. The jacket does a rather nice job of completing the overall look of the figure. I do find, going back to the removal of the hands, that I find the jacket here is slightly more bunched up on this sleeve than it is on this sleeve. You may have to find yourself, or at least I found with my particular figure, I had to really work the peg through and actually had to just take a screwdriver, just kind of open up a little bit more of the sleeve area so I could get the peg through. But once the hands are in place, and just kind of fixing up everything around it, you do have yourself a really nice looking Harley Quinn. Just kind of move everything out of the way here. As for the rest of her accessories, she comes with her trusty bat. It says goodnight on there, and it has all the little tiny notations there on the sides. The bat can't help, or I can't help but feel like the bat feels slightly on the faded side. It doesn't have nearly as much the vibrant color that I would think, nor comparing it to some of the other Harley Quinns that we've gotten. This seems to be a little bit slightly more on a paler standpoint. She does also come with her pistol. The gold is really a nice touch, and you've also got love on the one side, hate on the other, and a little bit of scroll work there up by the handle portion. And she also comes with a series of interchangeable hands. When I put the jacket on, I defaulted her back to a pair of relaxed hands, but she's also got a trigger hand for holding her pistol, and just a pair of gripping hands. Posability on Harley Quinn here. Her head rotates all the way around. A hinge up and down. They've also even gone as far as to hinge the individual pigtails, so you can move them back and forth. They also, because they move back and forth, a lot of times you may find the pigtails just popping out at random, but those just replace back. Arms hinge out. As you could probably imagine, they're a little bit more difficult to get posability as the jacket now is in place. Hinge on the elbow, rotation on the hand, upper torso ball joint, or actually more so lower torso ball joint. Doesn't seem to have anything up the top area here. Ball joint on the legs. Swivel cut also where the ball joint or the socket of the leg attaches to the ball joint. So a single hinge on the knee. Doesn't look like the knees rotate all that much, but the contrast to that, she has more than a sufficient amount of articulation in the feet. Ankle rocker, feet also hinge back and forth. And like I said, the figure doesn't have any sort of problems that I've found so far at standing. May just involve a little bit of adjustment, but the figure actually stands a lot better than some of the other figures of this scale. At the end of the day, the Mezco Toys 1/12 Collective Suicide Squad Harley Quinn is a nice representation of Joker's pudding. I still can't help but feel like the head sculpt is not 100% there. It looks close enough like Margot Robbie, but something feels slightly off. To be fair though, this figure gets closer to looking like Margot Robbie than some of the other examples that we've seen in collectibles and other figures. This one is pretty close. It's not there, but it's pretty close. Of all the head sculpts, I think the one that we looked at the beginning of this review, the default head sculpt, I think looks least like her, but I like the open mouth on this head sculpt, and I especially like the bubble blowing head sculpt that we also had to look at as well. I think that one is my favorite of the three. It would be a toss-up as to which one I would display more so with the figure. I definitely wouldn't be displaying her with the mouth closed. I would be displaying either this one or the one blowing the bubble. The clothing is a nice touch, although I don't really like how the fishnet stockings bunch up to give us a very black line on the back of the figure. She has all the sufficient accessories one would need and a rather nice display stand to stand the figure on top of. There's definitely more pros for this figure than negatives. The only negative I could really come up with is the head sculpt being slightly off and the fishnet stockings. Otherwise, everything else really nicely done. Nice work, Mezco Toys. Today we were having a look at the Mezco Toys 1/12 Collective. This was the Suicide Squad Harley Quinn. If you guys also want to go back and have a look at some of the other 1/12 Collective reviews that I've done, there's a playlist on this channel that you can watch at your viewing pleasure. In addition to that, if you haven't had a chance to hit that little subscribe button down below, make sure you do so. Many more videos will be definitely coming your way. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.